So here are 5 traits of high functioning autism that you need to see. All that's coming up. Hey guys, welcome back to the Ask Me world. My name is Dan. I have autism, ADHD, OCD and dyslexia, and I make weekly videos on this type of content. So if you're new around here and you'd like to learn more about those subjects, remember to hit that subscribe button by clicking the notification bell down below. And if you're watching over on Facebook, be sure to give this page a like and a follow to see more videos just like this one every single week. Boom. What is going on, different thinkers? Welcome back to the Ask Me world, where we think differently daily. It's an interesting one, right? I've called this video high functioning autism, right? But high functioning autism isn't a term that exists. It's kind of not a term they use anymore. It was actually taken away because of all this kind of weird stuff that happened between like nomenclature and trying to get support, and it was just a bit weird, and using functional labels didn't really help anybody. So they got rid of all that and then they called it autism spectrum disorder. So in this video, what I'm talking about is people on the autism spectrum with lower support needs than people on the autism spectrum with higher support needs. And therefore, let's get into what's going on. If you want to download my free PDF book on hacks for autism daily living, there will be a link in the card above here and in the description below and on the end slate, so you can download my free PDF book. If you've already got it, then that's awesome. I love you. Thank you so much for downloading my book for free. You guys are awesome. Okay, so I wrote down a list of traits of people who are on the autism spectrum with low support needs so that you would kind of be able to identify them, because sometimes it can be a bit tricky when people aren't typically displaying things that are noted with kind of like the classic idea of autism. So let's go through them right now. Okay, number 1 is the love of routines. Like, autistic people love routines. They love to stick to daily routines. They love to stick to doing the same thing every single day if they could. They probably have the same thing for breakfast every single day. They'll come down and they'll sit in the same spot, or they'll watch the same thing on the TV, or they'll read the same magazine. They may sit in the same chair all the time, and that routine is like their life. They love it. It's a lifeline. It's something they hold on to, something they cherish and they love, and it's part of them. It's something that we should really look out for, because that's a really good indicator of someone on the autism spectrum, because a love of routine gives somebody stability, and someone on the autism spectrum really wants stability, because that stability gives them that comfort, I guess, and security. Awesome. Okay, so number 2 is special interest. Most people on the autism spectrum will have a specific special interest, like almost like an obsessive interest that they really focus on. And when they really focus on it, I mean like they go to town on it. Like, I remember a guy who I know who's on the autism spectrum, and he was really interested in Marilyn Monroe, and like he knew everything about it. He read every book about Marilyn Monroe. He collected all her memorabilia and books and stuff, and even went to visit her house where she grew up, and went to the place where she was last living and stuff in America, and met some of her friends and all that kind of stuff. And it was just this crazy like obsessive interest with Marilyn Monroe. And I have obsessive interests too. I love systems and chemistry and yeah, just marketing and online social media and stuff like that. But like obsessive, like, I mean, I love it. I listen to it all the time. So in terms of that, obsessive interest and special interest come under the umbrella of a typical trait, or a personality trait of somebody in the autism spectrum, because it's very, very interesting and it gets intense. And I can tell you now that if you know exactly what I'm talking about, where you've got a son or a friend or whatever who's on the autism spectrum, or you suspect that they're on the spectrum, but they have this thing that they talk about, and they'll talk about it non-stop, just full pelt, talk to you about it until the cows come home, until you're bored and probably falling asleep, and you're like, I have no interest in stickers, stamps, or like vintage coins, but they're telling you about it anyway, right? Give this video a thumbs up if you know exactly what I'm talking about, man. I'm reaching out to you because I know you. I can see you. I can see you. I see you, Betsy. I see you there. Betsy, who's Betsy? Anyway, so the third one on my list is odd food habits. Now, autistic people, or an autistic person, may have unusual eating habits. Now, they may like separating their food on their plate, so that they have like, you know, chicken this side, and then rice this side, and then veggies this side, so they're not touching. Or they may have like their gravy and sauces and stuff in a pot next to their dinner, so they can dip their stuff into it, so they don't have to have it touching. This is very common because textures and stuff come with the sensory processing disorder, which is comorbidly co-occurring with autism, which is kind of like a bolt-on diagnosis that happens with autism. But it's kind of like, it kind of marries up quite well, but this also leads to things like unusual eating habits, where they want to separate food, or they can't have this type of food, or food that looks a certain color, or food that smells a certain way. Like for me specifically, I can't have raw onions or raw garlic anywhere near me, and I can't be in a room where someone's cooking onions and garlic. It just makes me feel very uncomfortable, and it's just difficult for me to be in the room. I remember getting really upset when I was doing my Access to Science course degree. when we had to dissect an onion to then put it into a microscope and look at the layers and stuff. But yeah, it was very difficult to deal with, but that's just who we are. It's just, we're all individual and we're all made just super awesome. So yeah, we should power to being individual, man. That's awesome. Okay, so the fourth thing I want to talk about here is difficulty in conversation. Now, conversing for people in social situations is typically something that people do without even thinking about. But people on the autism spectrum will have difficulties in social situations because autism in its core is a communicative issue. It's a communication issue where people on the autism spectrum will have difficulties socializing, because socializing has unwritten, kind of spoken about rules that we just pick up from just going to school and hanging with friends and being with this guy and that guy, and those things kind of pick up just around you. But people on the autism spectrum don't really pick these up because they're too busy trying to figure out the world around them from heightened senses and other things that's going on, or maybe their obsessive interest with coins and Marilyn Monroe is taking over the time where they would have been concentrating on conversational pieces between two people and blah blah blah. So this is a very interesting hallmark where someone on the autism spectrum may have an awkward time having a social dinner or a social conversation or meeting new friends. Very, very interesting. Okay, so number 5 is that people on the autism spectrum will have like an anxiety or overwhelmed easy part to them. So they could be like they could be overwhelmed very easily, basically, and they'll have excessive anxiety that can cause meltdowns and emotional outbursts, or what people used to call kind of like nervous breakdowns or an anxiety breakdown, which is basically a meltdown in an autism sense, which happens quite a lot, and happens because the person on the autism spectrum has a difficulty in certain situations that will heighten their anxiety or heighten their getting triggered, and they start getting upset, and then they get like emotionally overwhelmed, and all of those things can cause this upset, and this upset can come out as like an anxiety attack, or can come out as a I don't know, it could be an autism meltdown, could be a shutdown, could be anything, right? But the fact of the matter is that it happens. And if you are, if you know somebody who may be on the autism spectrum and you see them getting overwhelmed easily or triggered easily, or have anxiety attacks, or they're partial to panic attacks, and they have all this other stuff going on, well, there you go. They may actually be on the autism spectrum, and that's kind of like an interesting thing, and it's a cool thing because we're all individual and all different and all equal in our own way, and so that is super awesome. But that being said, guys, if you found value in this video, please share it on Facebook and Twitter to help somebody out. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time, guys. Peace.